All right, we are ready for episode 7 of We Are C2, getting to know the family. And this is Jeff and Amanda Chrisman. They are some of my favorite people. I think I say that about everybody, but every time I do a We Are C2, I'm like, oh, they're my favorite. Of course, I do that with my kids too. I each one of them, and when I've got them alone, I'm like, you're my favorite, and they're like, yeah, I know. You also said that to my siblings earlier today, so it's just the way it is. But welcome, Jeff and Amanda. Good to have you guys on tonight.
Hello. Aiden's in the other room laughing at you already.
Who is
Aiden?
Yeah, he's gonna have fun watching this, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
So how long have you guys been part of the Crossroads family?
15 years.
15 years. Wow.
Before Will.
I know.
Yeah, long before Will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, 15 years. We go way, way, way back.
So,
So when you guys first arrived, I love hearing the variety of when I ask these questions, and I kept thinking I need to come up with more. I need to come up with new questions, but I think everybody likes hearing everybody answer the same questions because it's like, oh, they answer them so differently. But when you guys first arrived, how did you guys first hear about Crossroads?
Well, we had gone to church before with the Haas's and the Baileys, and so we got married that previous October, and then by the spring we were looking to change, and so I got in contact with Chris Bailey, knowing that he was there. We didn't know the Haas's were going there, so we showed up the first Sunday because met Chris for lunch and talked to him because he led worship church we were at before, and just asked him about, hey, what do we go through the process of changing churches, because Point of Hope's the only church I'd ever gone to. And so I showed up, and there's the Haas's and some other people we knew from that church. So, but Amanda, so I started coming in May. Mm-hmm. Amanda had committed to do VBS that summer, so she didn't start coming until August. And after a couple weeks, Chris asked me to fill in with the band, and I'm like, wow, we don't even know if we're staying yet. I don't want to, not that I won't do it, but, so that's kind of how we got started. And then Amanda started coming in August, and we've been there ever since.
That was one of Chris's greatest recruitment tools was, hey, I need you on the worship team.
Well, I approached him not even talking about the worship team after, when we were looking to leave. But.
Yeah. So 15 years ago, other than, people that you remembered from previous churches, what stands out to you about when you first arrived at Crossroads?
Well, I know we started at different times. So when I arrived, he already knew a lot of people. And I was just overwhelmed in a good way about how nice everyone was and welcoming, because you'll find out I'm not much of an extrovert until you get to know me. But, and it was in a good way. It wasn't like that, whoa, get away from me kind of feeling, but just so welcome. Everybody made you feel, and immediately we were taken out to lunch the first week.
Very good. Very good. That's always a good memory maker. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. I was thinking about something. What was I going to ask? Yeah, I forgot. I know what it was. I think I had forgotten how newly married you guys were when you first came. You really hadn't been married very long at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've known you almost your entire married life.
Scary, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem possible that it's been that long. Oh,
no.
Yeah.
Now Will's in the youth department, and
he'll be in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all getting old.
I know.
Yeah.
Jeff's older than all of us.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So obviously Jeff's already given away. He's part of the worship team, and folks that come in on Sundays can see Jeff over there on electric guitar. But how else are you guys involved in serving here at Crossroads?
Well, people usually don't see me because I'm upstairs with the kids, or I'm running around with the children, or getting the children ready to go upstairs.
Yeah.
And that's my comfort zone. So you know me, I'd rather be with the kids than the adults. They're very forgiving. So the children's ministry is where.
Which is so funny because most people watching this would go, I would much rather be with adults than kids. Kids terrify most adults.
No, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
You have a gift for it too. So that.
And that's certainly an area where you're not an extrovert. I mean, where you're not an introvert.
Correct.
Is when you're with kiddos.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And you've been, of course, Jeff's been on the worship team the whole 15 years you guys have been here.
Yeah.
Amanda, you've been working with kids nearly the whole time too, haven't you?
Yeah, it didn't take long for Charlotte to hook me up with Sundays and Wednesdays, and
Yeah.
We're watching all the kids during worship team practice. In the morning.
babysitting.
Yep. Yep.
Oh wow. Yeah. Oh wow. That brings back memories.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you guys both Kansas City natives, both born and raised right here in the area?
Yep. Blue Springs.
Blue Springs?
I'm Green Valley, K through 12.
Wow. See, if I knew that, I forgot that.
Okay, I don't. Like I said, I'm more introverted, so a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I know your parents have owned a business in Oak Grove for a long time, and now your sister owns that. And then, but yeah, I don't know that I knew you went to Grain Valley. You're a Grain Valley native. Wow.
People that my picture's still in the hard ones on the wall at the high school.
Wow. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And then you both live in Grain Valley now, right?
Yeah, it's technically Oak Grove, but because we don't get a vote, we don't live in the city limits, but yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, right out there on the fringe.
Yeah, we're kind of part of both. Grain Valley and Oak Grove.
Yeah. Yeah, Grain Grove. Oh, goodness. So what do you guys do occupationally?
We're both teachers.
Yep.
Now.
Yeah, now we're both teachers.
Yeah. Wasn't our first career, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you guys first came, what were you doing?
When we first came, was I there yet? I was getting ready to start.
Yeah, she didn't want to work at the restaurant anymore, so she wanted to go back to school to be a teacher. So she started as a parent. And I was working it was Midwest United Credit Union in Blue Springs.
That's right. Yeah.
And then, so she wanted to go on the path to be a teacher. And then a couple years after that, right before Will was born, my credit union decided to merge in with Community America Credit Union. And they treated me really well. But when all was said and done, my job went from Blue Springs to moved out to their corporate headquarters, which is like 40 miles away. And they took good care of me. They had me in a good position, but I just didn't want to make the drive. And I talked to a lot of people that had worked with me or for me and said, hey, after doing finance for like 25 years or however long, I want to do something different. And everybody pretty much said, we just figured since you trained all of us, you'd go be a teacher. Wow. She had just finished going back to school, so I knew what that looked like. So I took time off until Will was born. And then like the month after Will was born, I started as a para before this age.
Wow.
I moved back to school in January. Like, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, what do you both teach now?
Go ahead.
I teach high school English in Oak Grove.
Okay.
And I just finished my 15th year in Green Valley. So I did 2 years as a para, and then I started working at the middle school, the South Middle School, and before there was a North Middle School. And I worked as just like 6th grade resource, and then eventually they begged me to try the autism classroom, and I did, and I've just kind of moved into the social thinking teacher, and that's my passion.
Wow.
You just can't get rid of me.
Yeah. Nobody wants to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's all I ever hear. Of course, with Grain Valley, you hear of a lot more people, but that just always talk about how you're so good. there in the middle school. Sorry, I don't know about Oak Grove.
Yeah, Jeff hides over there in Oak Grove. Green Valley and Oak Grove people, we don't mingle much, so we don't know about Oak Grove people.
It's okay. I like the. Sorry, Aiden's getting a cup of water and the ice maker.
He's looking at me like, what's the problem?
I like that. I run into some of my students everywhere I go. They
Uh-huh.
do my snack and quick trip, all that kind of stuff. I run into them, and I taught special ed in Belton for a few years before I landed in Oak Grove.
Okay, yeah.
But no, I like the size of the Oak Grove district for me.
Mhm.
They pretty much trust us to do what we need to do, and there's a lot less layers to getting stuff done than there would be in a bigger district. So I'm very happy there.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about growing up, the homes you grew up in, family upbringing, things like that.
Well, let's see. I grew up in Green Valley, just outside of the, city limits. My parents actually live, I think when you count their driveway, it's half a mile from here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they built our house when I was 2 years old, and they're still in the same house. And growing up was difficult because my parents always owned their own businesses.
Mm.
So we spent a lot of time at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I remember Friday nights and Saturday nights, we were in Grandma and Grandpa's basement and watching Knots Landing and Dallas. That was Friday night with Grandma and Grandpa having popcorn, and we were there every Friday night. We were hiding behind the booths at the restaurant because, we get in trouble. We can't be playing. Mom and Dad are working. And then my dad also, for a long time, owned his own heating and air conditioning business. So they had two businesses going.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my grandparents owned I-70 Speedway. So then when I was 12, I got to start working. So I know a lot about really strong work ethic. It was ingrained in me from very young. So it's really hard for me to see people that don't have that now. It's so much more. And even when I'm teaching, I try to help instill that in the kiddos. That, just because you see people doing that doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. So yeah, went to school K through 12, and then so my mom and dad both went to Blue Springs, so they're both from Blue Springs. And I have one sister, and she's 2 years younger, and she owns PTs now with her husband. My parents are fully retired. They're very happy to be retired. And my dad's had some illnesses, fighting cancer, so leukemia. And so he's just not able to do what he used to be able to do. But we did go to church every single Sunday. But that's it. Like, we went Sunday.
Okay.
And we went to Timothy Lutheran in Blue Springs. My grandparents had went there, and that's where we went. We mostly went because that's what my dad had to do, because, otherwise his mom he'd be in trouble. And then my parents would go to church, and then they'd leave us there for Sunday school and then come back and get us. And it was really hard. I didn't make a lot of connections because all the kids in my age group were Blue Springs kids. So I only saw them on Sundays. So there was one girl that went to Oak Grove, and I remember Karen, her and I kind of, we had to hang out because everybody else knew each other outside of the church. And so just making connections was really, really difficult. So, but I did the confirmation classes, and, did my first communion. And even when I went off to college, I at first didn't go to church. I didn't know where to go or what to do. And finally found a friend that went. So we did a little bit of church in college, but nothing like I should. So when I came back from college is when I finally started going to church again, and then actually really finding out it's not just going to church.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. So, having grown up in Grain Valley your whole life, Daniel has spent most of his life in Grain Valley. We were talking about this the other day. How many schools were in Grain Valley? Just for those that are newer to Grain Valley, how many schools were there in Grain Valley when you started?
There was one elementary, Matthews, which is still there. It's been redone many times. And then we didn't have middle school. We had junior high. So it was K through 6 in Matthews. And then there was a campus that had 7th through 12th. And it was 3 buildings and an annex, a metal annex for the band. that was all in one campus. So you actually were with 7 through 12.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And that's where McDonald's and AutoZone is now, or Advanced Auto or whatever that auto parts store is.
And
Yeah,
then
that's set there.
you had to go across the street, across Main Street, to get to, that was where the superintendent's office was, like
Mhm.
central office, Dr. Hackett back in the day. And then behind there, like where the pavilion is, that's that old field that's out there. That was where we did football.
That was the football field.
The big
Yeah.
park. That's where we graduated.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah. When we moved to town, there was Matthews,
mhm.
and then Snibar was new, and the high school was new. And so what had been the junior high and high school was just junior high by the time we moved to town in 99. So, but yeah, we've added quite a bit even since then.
Yes.
Kind of
Mhm.
crazy. Kind of crazy. Jeff, how about you? Tell us about your upbringing.
Yeah, I lived in Blue Springs all my life until we moved out here 5 years ago. We were on the first street there south of 40 Highway where McDonald's and the fire station is. All that land that's back there that's now 54th Street and going back to Plaza Heights, Cherokee Estates. That was actually my dad's aunt's farm. And she donated the land for Plaza Heights Baptist Church. And until I haven't heard, but as recently as a couple years ago, she's in her 90s still playing organ up there like once a month.
Oh,
So anyway, she would always, we grew up living next door in a duplex to my dad's parents because my grandpa had really bad arthritis. And he just sat down one day when I was like 4 and said, I can't work anymore. They had a farm, and my grandma never even had a Social Security card. She was like 60 years old. So she had to get a job, Social Security card, get a job, and start working for the City of Blue Springs Water Department until like she retired when she was 80. So my mom's parents both passed away before she was like 12. So
Mm.
we just grew up helping take care of grandma and grandpa. That was just what we did. You know, some of my friends would say, well, I got to, go 4 or 5 hours to see my grandparents. And I'm like, oh, mine are just right next door. We'd go over, we'd help grandpa with what he needed. And we'd go over and listen to baseball games on the radio and do crossword puzzles and stuff like that. That was just, what we did. I went to Blue Springs, and when I started Franklin Smith Elementary kindergarten, there was, I think, 3 elementaries. And up until when I was in junior high, they were building a new elementary school every year.
Wow.
They were growing that fast.
Huh.
So I graduated Blue Springs High School. We had sophomore, juniors, and seniors on campus every day, but we had like 2,200 kids on campus just for those 3 grades before they split the school. So when
Wow.
you're at graduation and you got 650 kids walking across the stage, I was just pretty good friends with about 4 or 5 guys I'd known since 2nd grade. And these people were walking across the stage. We're going, did you know them? Nope. Never seen them. Nope. And so I started working in restaurants when I was 14. So me and my buddies, we were always working on the weekends. We didn't do dances or football games or stuff. We just worked. Worked at Perkins and Minsky's and places like that. And then I went to I lived at home, went to college at UMKC and got a business degree. And then I worked for Ford Credit for like 15 years, and then worked at the credit union for another 10 years. And that's when Amanda and I got married, and the merger happened with the credit union, I just chose to do something different. But I've got one brother that's 2.5 years younger than me, and him and his wife, they got married like 2 years after we got married. I remember my brother standing up at the wedding reception saying, I'm never getting married. He got married like 2 years later. He does communications for the Blue Springs School District. So he used to be a reporter for the Examiner, and so he covered high school sports. So no matter where we go, if we go somewhere with him, he knows a kid or a parent or a coach or an athlete so.
And you guys are so old that his brother covered kids that I went to school with during high
Yes.
school.
One of the guy that was the wrestling coach at Oak Grove and then moved to Blue Springs a couple years ago, my brother interviewed him when he was a freshman wrestling at Oak Grove.
Wow.
He's been around a long time too. Yeah. So,
Wow.
Wow. It's,
yeah, but growing up, we never like the only time we went to church is when friends of my parents would like pester us enough to get us to go. My aunt would come by every week and meet with my grandma, and she tried to convince us to ride the bus to Plaza Heights, and we just never wanted to go. It just was never a good experience. And I, somewhere along the line, I understood that there was a God, but I didn't quite get why you had to go somewhere every Sunday and do certain things that's kind of what I associate with it. So when I started dating Amanda and she went to church, she asked me to go with her, and I think you were surprised that I said yes. But
Well, he knew it was either you're going to go and you're going to find out what all this is about, or we're not going to be dating anymore.
yeah,
you're coming
Motivation.
down one way or the other.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, how did y'all meet?
we worked together. I was her boss.
We did not date while we worked together.
We always have to say that.
No one believes us, but
No,
yeah.
it's funny. I worked at the credit union, and besides being the lending manager, I managed call center, and she applied to work there. So I interviewed her, and I was her boss. And then after she left there to go back to work for her parents again, it was a couple months later after that, we started dating. So it was funny because when we went to refinance our mortgage at the credit union a couple years ago, we were sitting in the office waiting for the person to come in and sign all the papers. And I turned around, Will was with us, I think. And I said, this room's where we first met when you came in for your interview. And it's like, oh, yeah. So
Wow.
the credit union is where we first met.
Woohoo, exciting.
Yeah.
Real exciting.
What a Cinderella story. So who, you worked together, Amanda left, went back to work for her mom and dad. Who initiated a date?
You did. He
Yeah.
invited me, well, it wasn't a date. He invited me to go see his brother's band play.
My brother was in a band, and they were playing at the bar up the street from the credit union. So I invited her to come out and watch them play. And
Then I got a real date after that.
yeah, then we got a real date after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did y'all date before you got married?
It was about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about the same for us. Yeah, very cool. So you've talked about church and how church came into your life. Tell us a little bit about your journey of faith. I mean, coming to Jesus, putting your faith and trust in Jesus. How did that come about?
Yeah, I'll go. I don't know. I can't point to just like one moment, but I kind of always felt that there was more to life than just you live and then you go in the ground. But then when I started going to church with her, some of the things that they talked about and just made sense. And they had this thing. It was probably the flavor of the month at that time called the Alpha course that they took people through, talking about faith and all that. And read a few books, some of the Chris Strobel books, Case for Christ, Case for a Creator, stuff like that. And the way he approached it just made sense to me. So I can't put, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this makes sense to me. And I guess it's always been there. I just didn't know how to go about it. So
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Amanda?
Well, I've always known God, who he
Right.
was, and studied. I mean, you had 2 full years of learn this, learn that, memorize this, do this in 7th and 8th grade. I'll never forget it. And you had to put on that big old white dressy looking thing, and you had to stand up and, they made you pick a verse. You had certain choices, and you had to like write an essay and then get up and talk about that and how that was going to lead your life and all this. And I can't even remember the verse. It was something about, money being the root of all evil, which I've learned more about taking that verse, not just the verse now. So I never had a true relationship with God. I mean, I prayed to him. So I had a relationship one-sided, I felt like, because, I'd talk to him, but I didn't get in the word. Like they didn't really teach us how to do that or tell us that's what you're supposed to do. And so when I came home from college was a mess. I almost flunked out. So it took me 5 years instead of 4. I was the first one to go to college in our family. So it was like nobody knew what to tell me. And so I floundered around, but I finally made it back home. And I started going to Point of Hope. It was actually the lady who I went to Timothy with her, and I was looking for something that wasn't traditional.
Mm.
And she actually invited me, and she almost scared me off because she convinced me that she talks in tongues and was actually trying to, show everybody. And I was a little confused, but then I finally was able to, through some of the classes that I did there, I finally kind of reestablished my relationship with God and learned how to have a relationship and not just say I'm a Christian, but actually, I want to know God. I want to dig deeper into his word. So it was when I came back, and Linda, she had really helped me just to kind of see that. And that's why I knew that Jeff was going to have to come experience it, and hope that, because I didn't think we would make it if we weren't both had a strong relationship with God.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
good. That's really good.
So how does that affect how you all grew up and then came to Jesus at the times that you did? How does that affect the way you're raising children now?
I think it really changes how you approach parenting. And a lot of times I butt heads with my parents over those type of things. Like, they just don't understand sometimes why we do what we do, and trying to explain it, or I'm sorry, we're going to church, we can't come to dinner. If you want to move it to this time, then that's great. But no, we're having Sunday, So just a lot of things. They've just had to learn that that's how it is, because we're going to raise our children based on our beliefs.
Yeah, and for my parents too. I think it comes more their, they make a question, and and I know they're still my parents, but sometimes I had to say, well, this is just the way we're, this is what we believe, this is what we're going to do, and we can agree to disagree, but
It was hardest when we were fostering. They didn't
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Some people might not know we were foster parents for several
4 years, yeah.
Too many. It was a very, very humbling, tough journey. Not realizing how tough the world is out there for some, until you see it firsthand and experience as kiddos. And glad we did it. I mean, I don't look back and say, oh, why'd we do that? I know why we did it. It was all God. But it was, he was definitely sending us some challenges.
Yeah, there were times where we were told not to bring certain kids to functions, or why would you want to put Will through this, or stuff like that. Well, Will was part of the process. He was 3.5. They sat down and interviewed him as part of our case study before they approved our license. So we couldn't have done it without him, because he went from having his own room to not having his own room, to sharing his room to switching rooms. I mean, it was, but he never complained. And, so those are some of the things that with, the grandparents, sometimes they chirp in, and we just have to say this, we know, we don't expect you to understand. We're not going to spend time explaining because we feel led to do it. So that's going to be tough, but it's kind of like, can I understand sometimes with your kids, you got to let them fail, and it's tough. It breaks your heart because you can't always be there to make it better for them. You got to let them figure it out. And, and my parents that are both 80, they sometimes I see that they don't understand that we got to figure it out for ourselves, no matter how old we are. But I'm a lot older. Yeah.
He's 12 years old.
Yeah. And my brother and his wife are that far apart too. But
Really?
when you're this age, it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah. You guys are trendsetters.
I don't know about that.
So tell us about the boys. Tell us about your family.
Will will be 12 in November. And one of the things, when Amanda was pregnant with Will, she had gestational diabetes, and everything turned out fine. Within 12 hours of Will being born, everything was fine, just like the doctor told us it would. But as we got more thinking about more children, we're like, based on our ages, we probably don't want to risk it again. But Will, I see a lot of him in me, because he can do math in his head, and sometimes he gets bored with school, like I did. But he loves playing sports, and he's learned a lot. Just, I told him he's not the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, but he can be a good teammate. And he learned a lot of that from Mick Simpson going to one of his baseball camps. He will still talk about that from like when he was 6. He's like, well, I can still be a good teammate. And the team he's on now, they practice up at Mick's facility. And so we've been lucky that every team he's played for, baseball, basketball, football, the coaches do it right. They don't put up with a whole lot of nonsense from the parents. So you hear some of those bad stories. And, he'd be there. If the game's at 4, he'd want to be there at noon if I drive him, but he really likes that. And then you want to talk about Aiden?
Aiden, you want to come introduce yourself?
Yeah, Aiden, come here.
He's coming. So Aiden is 10. He'll almost 11 in September.
Yeah.
And he's going into 5th grade.
So the boys are 10 months apart, and sometimes we do have to explain that.
Because people look at me like, okay.
Yeah, they look at it.
Oh, okay, come around here, baby.
Okay.
Okay. So you're going to say hi to everybody. And there you go. You can come with your.
Hi, Aiden. How are you? Good.
Tell them your name. How old are you?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
10.
Yeah,
And what do you
that sounded like a question.
I know, from my 10.
What
Yeah.
do you love to do?
I like to do Legos.
Whoa.
Ooh, look at that. That's cool, Aiden.
Okay, from here it looks like a spaceship. Is it a spaceship?
Good job, Daryl.
Yep. Right answer.
Nice. Very cool.
Loves art and being creative with art, free draw. And with his Legos, you know how they have those sets?
Uh-huh.
He doesn't do sets. He just has a huge thing of Legos that we've collected over the years. And he decides, Mom, what do you want me to build? What should I build?
And we tell him, and he builds
And
it.
he goes in there and creates it.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
amazing, Aiden. That is really cool.
Other one I
I
did.
can show
Yeah.
you pictures.
So he's had a lot of time recently to work on that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fun.
yeah.
Oh, yes. He's glad the first summer school's over.
Wait, what? Yeah. Well, at least I can make food, I hope.
No, that's okay. I'll explain it later.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, very cool.
Now,
Well, thanks for jumping on, Aiden.
You good?
Anything else you want to say to everybody?
Bye.
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 Bye, Aiden.
Yes, he's our creative kid.
So we've had Aiden since he was 5.
Yeah.
And he was one of our foster kiddos. We actually had his 2 older sisters, but we just weren't able to meet their needs. They needed more than what we
Yeah.
could give, and gosh, we were giving everything and then some.
Mhm.
We survived almost 6 months,
Yeah.
and just it was one of the hardest things we've ever been through. Is
Yeah.
we can give him a home, and we want to give him a home, but not being able to keep his sisters too. That was one of the
Yeah.
hardest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still have a hard time because getting them together, they get moved around, and supposedly they finally might have an adoptive family. One already got interrupted, so just But he's thriving and happy, and
Yep.
him and Will drive each other crazy, so they're perfect brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have adopted him.
Yes, he is officially a Chrisman.
Yep.
That's
As
awesome.
of 4 years ago? A little over 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. One big happy family.
Oh, and then the 2 dogs. So
Yeah,
because
they're-
otherwise I'd be the only girl. So both the dogs are girls. That way I don't feel left out.
Sheesh.
So what's a passion that you're currently pursuing?
Well, my passion is still kids. I mean, it probably always will be. That's just where my heart is. So for work, my occupation, my passion is I've been doing tons of online professional development this summer just because everyone's offering it for free. So why not? And just how I'm going to go back in the classroom and continue to help these kids be great social thinkers. Not, here's what you do to say hello to someone, but how do you think socially? Because it's so much harder for a lot of the kids. Kids with ADHD, kids with autism, kids with behavior needs. I mean, there's a lot of kids that aren't diagnosed with something that they have, it's really hard. They're just, they're the quirky ones that need that. So just taking that passion back to the school district when I go back.
Yeah.
Mine's, well, along those same lines, is, English hasn't really changed much over the years, but I'm always reading. I love to read, and I'm always reading books about how, not necessarily, what's the latest technology, because that stuff changes. You look at a list of 10 apps you got to use this year, the next year they're all something different, But I think I do a pretty good job picking out stuff that, focuses on why you would use it or how to just help students engage. And I think one thing that, there's a lot of people that have been teachers a lot longer than I have, but I think one thing I try to get across to my students is that, you talk about like when we use this in the real world. Well, I was out there 25 years before coming to be a teacher, so I know a few things. And sometimes I tell them, you may not realize I do till 10 years down the road. But I've had students come to me and said, when you said that a couple years ago, now I see that, So I try to connect like what we do in the curriculum to like why you would need to do this, how you can think for yourself, why you would need to, why spelling and grammar are important. It may be boring, but people judge you on what they see on paper or in a text or an email first.
Daryl first.
And I like finding like headlines that like the TV stations or the Star puts out on the web before they should have. And I save them and I show them in class and said, tell me what that means. And they're like, oh my gosh, who's going to lose their job over that? I said, well, I don't know, they're going to lose their job, but do you see how you have expectations that, so I'm just always trying to look for ways to help, kids that, I do believe in giving them second and third chances. And I try to tell them, you have to communicate with me. I can do a lot of things as a teacher. I have a lot of teacher superpowers, but I can't read your mind. So come talk to me and we'll talk it over. Because that's what you got to do in real life. So I just always trying to focus on that. And then, of course, the challenge of having to teach online and all that stuff.
You guys are superheroes, man. That's crazy.
We're just big
I can't
teacher
imagine.
dorks.
Yeah, we are just
We're just big teacher dorks. We love what we do.
Yeah.
It was God's gift for me to work with kids.
Because I've had people say, well, gosh, you worked with adults. I managed adults for a long time, and I tell you, sometimes they're worse. They really are. I can handle, kids sometimes. You can deal with stuff, but managing adults is a lot different. Especially like, are we gonna, it's snowing, are we gonna get early release, are we gonna do this or whatever? And adults are crazier when it comes to that.
No doubt. No doubt. And you have to deal with both, actually. You have to deal with kids and their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to be skilled with both, especially today. No doubt.
Today. It's always the teacher's fault now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Amanda, are you the Grain Valley Director of Special Olympics? Is that your title?
Sure, you can call me that. So I never wanted to be.
The Grain Valley Glutton for Punishment for Special Olympics, or?
Anything they want to put on her.
I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Back when we had a foster kiddo named Joey, and he was in middle school, and he wanted to do Special Olympics, so I started going with him to practice and being the mom. So it was actually a parent before I was a coach.
Yeah, like 5 kids on basketball. Not even that many. Yeah.
It was very small, and then our head coach, and we were all just volunteers. There was nothing, like we weren't even actually affiliated with the school at this time. They weren't ready to do that. And so I started just helping coaching even after Joey moved on. And I guess I never stopped. And then Aiden started doing some sports with us. And I just have always done it. And I love it. I always say, oh my gosh, everyone's like, how can you do one more thing? And I'm like, somehow I get it done. But it is very rewarding to see that with the sports aspect, because they don't, usually get that opportunity.
And then I'm there watching, and I'll be sitting with some of the parents and I'll hear comments like, wow, I never thought my kid could do something like this. Well, I know that makes it worth it for her. From the parents. They may not know I'm listening. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But,
right.
It's always scary when I'm coaching golf because I know nothing about golf. Track and field, when they want me to run around with them, I'm like, yeah, I'll walk. You run. But and we start with 8-year-olds all the way till they graduate. So
Wow.
Tom Peters, who is a member here at Crossroads, she is my assistant coach. So I'm the head coach, she's the assistant, and then we have several amazing parents who coach.
Very cool.
So
You guys are, other than maybe Jeff's participation on worship team, really everything you guys are involved in are really kind of holistic. I mean, just teaching and kids and Special Olympics and all that, it just kind of all, even the groups that you're involved in, it's just a kind of a very, I guess, our worship team is kind of like Special Olympics, though. It's
Oh,
but through worship team, he's had kids, or especially Will, who wants to be part of the worship team.
yeah,
And he wants to learn how to play the guitar and do those things and show his love for God through worship.
yeah,
So to me, it's still a
or
teaching
just
opportunity.
the people that have come and gone, that started as kids. And I mean, I remember the first couple weeks I was there, it's like, well, who's the guy sitting in the back with his head down and the hat on that won't even look up? And that was Daniel. You guys remember. And
yeah,
I know, I've told him this, but, it took him a while to where, and then for a while I was in charge of the worship team. I don't sing, but I could organize, and you didn't have anybody else to do that. So, and then
stepped up, man. Yeah,
Daniel said, well, I've been working with the youth. I think I'm kind of ready. Well, so, I don't think I taught him anything about playing guitar, but, I mean, I know just enough to get by, but
yeah,
it's kind of nice that, I never really played with people. I noodle around every once in a while, and for years I sold my stuff, and then my brother and I lived together, and he's like, I'm buying you a guitar for Christmas. You're going to play again. I'm like, well, and then when we started dating and going to church, she told the pastor that I knew how to play guitar. And I'm like, no. And so I started showing up to practices, and I think there were like 2 Sundays I went, and I was supposed to play, and like the power went out or something both Sundays. So she's like, well, are you ever going to play? And I'm like, So I just kind of sat in, and then I was electric guitar player. So, but
yeah,
yeah.
Never know.
yeah, yeah. Never know. Never
A
know.
lot of people, come and go for the worship team, and, the younger kids, I mean, seeing the guys playing now that were so young that
Yeah. I mean, it won't be long, and our entire worship team will be people that have come through Amanda's kids ministry, and
Yeah, we've always been very passionate about that, though, of like, raising up the kids. And of course our kids all went through the praise team, and I'm loving watching Macy now. She went from, the keyboard and now coming over, and I just love that. I love to see these kids, and Bubba, Caleb McCain, sorry, on the drums. That was his name growing up.
yeah,
Sorry.
Faith on bass.
Faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just really neat to see our kids just actively ministering through things that they're passionate about, and so.
Which worship team is upstairs. I don't know if can y'all hear it on your end? Good, because I wasn't sure how it was going to come across on the video, but worship team's actually above us right now, practicing. We're kind of keeping Jeff from that. Hey, let's hit a couple of fun facts real quick. Let's see. Let's start with some easy ones first. Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Hamburgers.
Hamburgers, both hamburgers. You're both dog people. You got 2 dogs.
Yep.
Let's see. Plan vacation, or do you just wing it?
Depends on which one of us you're asking. I'm the planner.
She's the
She
planner.
said, well, we'll just go when we're ready. I'm like, no.
No, she's planned.
There's a little OCD that requires,
He's the wing it planner.
Yeah. We used to, I don't know if we've talked about this on any of these, but we used to go to Branson, and we'd just go on a whim. I mean, there was no planning. Sharon plans vacations out completely now to the detail. But if I was in charge of planning a vacation, we get to Branson and we would drive from hotel to hotel until I found the one that I wanted to stay at.
Drove me crazy.
Not do that, sure.
I wanted to look at the rooms. I want to see which one's the best one to stay at. And you might get a better deal if you just walk up to the counter.
Oh, wow.
We've
Unless they were
compromised.
in the last
We
year
have.
when-
What'd you say, Jeff?
Guy again doesn't plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. As teachers, who's your favorite teacher and why?
Mine was my second grade teacher, Miss Paula Heron. Part of the
I
ward
love
thing.
Miss Paula. Yeah.
I actually had the honor of speaking at her retirement party with one of her former students.
Wow.
So it's because of her that I fell in love with teaching, and that was in second grade. Like, I can't pinpoint what she did or why, but and I can't go back and say we did this and that in second grade, but that was like the point in time when she was the teacher that was like, I knew I wanted to be her someday.
Wow. I have heard several people talk about Miss Paula as their favorite teacher growing up. Yeah.
Wow, I don't know. My teachers, none of my teachers are probably alive anymore.
They had to be alive.
But I don't know. I think more about like the teachers that I've worked with since I became a teacher, and like anything, I've had some really good ones, some not as good, but there was an English teacher I worked with in the Belton School District that I was a special ed teacher, and a lot of times they throw you into those class within a class situations, and it's tough because you never know. Sometimes I was just the bouncer in the room, for that hour. But Mr. Hammond and I both, we just were kind of similar ages, had similar personalities, and we got along good. We had a class with like 2/3 of the kids on IEPs, and that class scored the highest on the end of course exam that year in our whole district, and we just worked really good together. Just the way he approached things, and we just clicked together. So, in fact, I reconnected with him this fall because I had a student transfer over that was in his class. So at Belton.
Oh, wow.
So, and I just look at some of the teachers I work with in the building I'm in that they really have what's in the best interest of the kids in mind. They're always willing to ask a question, or we've always just got time for each other if we show up at each other's door, and that's nice. There's some teachers I see more than others, but I just like the building I'm in, I think, more than any individual teacher right now.
Yeah. Very good. What's your favorite movie?
Go ahead.
It depends. Well, we made our way through all the Marvel movies since we've been home from school.
We have never watched them.
We never, like when they came out, I saw like the first Iron Man and the second one, and I'm like, okay, it made more sense for us to watch it in order that they fell before.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all really, the whole family liked those.
The boys were old enough now.
Yeah.
And we got Disney
Right.
Plus.
Yeah.
And so we were just having these awesome movie nights.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, right now those are some of my favorite. I don't know. My favorite is one of my all-time favorite movies is Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I love Back to the Future.
I love that movie.
I like that one. Well, and I like, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars. And show the nerd in me. She wouldn't watch this with me, but if you grew up in the 80s with friends that were in heavy metal bands, you have to watch This Is Spinal Tap.
Oh.
It's done like a documentary of a fake band, and like all the inside jokes about like they're more concerned with their makeup than their guitars being in tune. Those are the friends I had growing up. And she would never watch that with me or get any of the jokes. Well, because we're so apart.
I know.
Our taste in music is so different because
Uh-huh.
what I grew up with is not what she grew up with. But I've got Will. I'm getting Will trained on what I listen to. So.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a zinger at you. This wasn't on the list. I don't think I've asked this one of anybody. What's your favorite worship song?
Oh, the one we walked down the aisle to when we got married, and I put the wrong music on the disc. Who am I? By Casting Crowns. Yeah, we had a real tough time deciding music, and we didn't want to hire people, and we'd been to like 7 weddings that year that we got married in October, and we picked out. We were wedding snobs. Like every bad thing that happened, like she got a piece of cake with a ball of dough in the middle, and so I picked the music, and I picked the instrumental track for that song on a disc and just told the kids in the sound booth, play it, pay $25, just play it. And she walks through the doors in the sanctuary, and the music's going, and then they start singing. And she gave me a look like, you picked the wrong song. And I was just like, just keep walking, lady. Just keep walking. Nobody's going to know. You made it. Yeah. And then you remember what happened
There's some stories you don't need to read.
Yeah.
What happened after the ceremony?
I don't remember.
You don't want me to say that? The pastor forgot to have
Oh,
a kiss.
yeah. He forgot to steal with the kiss.
Oh.
Walking down the aisle, and one of my friends grabbed me by the arm. She goes, you need to go back up there. They didn't have the kiss. And my friend, the photographer's at the end of the aisle, and goes, oh, yeah, they forgot. We got to stop. So we had to go back up on stage and reenact it. Yeah.
Got to seal it with a kiss for sure.
Oh,
That's awesome.
That's where you just enjoy your wedding day and just go with the flow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know, favorite worship song, it's because there's ones that, I don't know, I think it just depends on the mood, because there's some that I play, like for playing them, some of them are real easy, but, you know, I don't think that affects like what my favorite. There's some that are like more fun to play, obviously, but I try to, you know, I think the mood depends on which song.
Yeah, that's probably true. So what's your favorite genre of music?
Sorry, that's hilarious because ours are so different. Go ahead.
I grew up listening to 70 and 80s heavy metal, and I still listen to that kind of stuff besides the worship music. So much of the modern rock, I just don't get, but
Yeah.
kind of what I, you know, the bands that I saw, you know, we'll be watching a movie and she'll like, oh, well, or hear a song. She goes, well, that was in that movie last year. I go, yeah, that song was from a concert I saw in 1980. So she was, you know, so young.
Not in school yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my brother worked in a record store and we had friends in bands growing up and all that stuff and still do. And so my point of reference on music and hers are so different.
Yeah. What's yours, Amanda?
I actually grew up, and the only thing that was on the radio at home was country music. My uncle was a DJ on KFKS in the morning.
Yep.
And for years. And so that's all we were listening to, was just his station. So country, I guess, by heart, but I don't really listen to country now. There's a few songs that Aiden demands we listen to. But really, I just like my Hey Love or my 88.5. I really like the worship music that like has more of an upbeat when I'm out and in the car, just lift your mood. I always just listened to whatever was popular when I was that age.
Yeah.
He laughs at me because what I do is every time he talks, it makes me think of a line of a song and then I start singing it. And so that's how I am about music. Like I can't tell you a certain, this was the genre, it was just whatever was popular.
Yeah.
Where he was, very much into this and still loved that music.
Yeah, but I also, since then my brother started working in record stores, and so I got exposed to a lot of, blues and jazz and other stuff that I like too. I'm training Will to like, okay, this song comes on the radio, what album, what,
They already took him to see Kiss.
Yes.
See what?
Kiss.
Kiss, the band Kiss.
Yes. Will had great. My brother, when they announced it, my brother called me and goes, we're taking Will no matter what Amanda says. He's going. So we gave him the present of the ticket for his birthday in November, and then we saw him in February a year and a half ago. He had an absolute blast.
Oh, that's awesome. That Kiss. Oh, my. That's great.
That was my brother and I, that was our first concert.
Okay.
Sophomore in high school. We had to con my uncle and his wife to take us because my parents wouldn't take us. Yeah. So.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, guys, I think we've rattled on long enough. And I'm not taking time to edit these, so we're gonna just make everybody watch this all the way through. But it's
Okay.
what's that?
Enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, I've had fun just getting to hang out with you guys, and hopefully lots of folks have gotten a chance to get to know you guys, since you are, even though Jeff's on stage, you guys are a little more behind the scenes than a lot of other folks that we've interviewed. And so as a matter of fact, I think right as we're talking right now, John's We Are C2 is premiering live. And so people get to know John tonight, and then we'll have you guys on next week. But thanks for your time tonight, and thanks for watching Crossroads. And we'll continue on as long as you guys are willing to do the interviews, getting to know the body here at We Are C2.